Good, Anakin, good. Kill him now.
No.
There goes a sight from my soul.
The Star Wars prequels are not very good, but I love them anyway. I know at one point it was cool to hate these movies and say they killed cinema. It was cool to make a 27-part video series on why these movies are awful. It was cool to say George Lucas ruined everything and that he, quote, raped everyone's childhood. Okay, that last part was never cool. Now, I'm not making this video to defend the prequels as these pseudo-intellectual subversive masterpieces, because let's be real here, they're not. People are only defending these movies now because the new Disney movies are just as terrible, but I'll get to those at a later date, don't you worry. But even though I don't think these movies are very good, that doesn't mean I hate them. In fact, it's quite the opposite. So today, I want to take a look at each prequel movie and see what works, what doesn't, and what's so baffling it comes back around to being hilarious. Alright, enough of the intro, let's start at the very beginning. For the longest time, The Phantom Menace was agreed upon as the worst Star Wars movie, and for the longest time, I vehemently disagreed. Not because I think it's good, but because Attack of the Clones is right there, but I'll get to that. However, now that I've seen this movie again, I can honestly see why people really hated it. Now, in my opinion, while I agree that the movie is terrible, I can't say I hate it. I'm going to be saying that a lot this video, so be prepared. The overuse of CGI, the wooden acting, the retconning, the overabundance of space politics, yeah, there's a lot of bad stuff in this movie. There is a lot of talking in it. The characters are just having conversations about current political space issues, and only every once in a while is there an action scene. What especially sucks is that everybody is talking, but no one's saying anything. It's all gibberish. To me, one of the biggest problems with this movie is its story. Here's a challenge. Try and recite the plot of The Phantom Menace right now. Spoiler warning, you can't. There is no plot. I tricked you. As far as I'm concerned, there are two stories going on in Phantom Menace. Anakin Skywalker, the technical main character of this trilogy, joining the Jedi, and some crisis on some new planet about trade federations. Can you guess which one is focused on more? I guess I wouldn't mind these two stories being in this movie if A, they were written better, and 2, we didn't already know that Anakin joining the Jedi is way more important in terms of Star Wars as a franchise. Nobody cares about trade federations or Chancellor Valorums or Space Congress. We care about seeing the origins of Darth Vader. Now with that said, the Anakin stuff isn't all that great either. I'm gonna be honest and say that, yeah, Jake Lloyd is not a very good actor. But I don't blame him for this movie sucking. Apparently this kid got bullied and people blamed him for why this movie is terrible. I mean, like, come on guys, he really wasn't that bad. I mean, are we gonna bully the kid from Unbreakable and say that he sucks too? Because he does. How about the kid from Muppet Treasure Island? No? Nothing? I guess Star Wars is more special than Muppets or Shyamalan. First of all, yeah, he's bad, but he's really not the worst aspect of this movie. And second, you guys were bullying a child. Do you know how sad that sounds? Alright, I don't want to beat a dead horse, just know that yes, Lloyd is not very good. Pretty much anything bad you've heard about the prequels is true. As far as I'm concerned though, I can forgive all these aspects. I don't mind the bad CGI or how annoying Jar Jar is. I've never really been bothered by them. I definitely don't like them, but they surprisingly don't ruin the movie for me. What does kind of ruin the movie are the midichlorians. God almighty, do I hate the midichlorians. This is one of those retcons that piss me off the most when it comes to Star Wars, and movies in general. This is straight up taking the magic and abstractness of the Force and turning it into a fucking boring ass science that's also just a secret club. Yeah, it turns out not everyone can be in tune with the Force. Only these specific people with special cells in their blood can use it. One of the great things about the Force in the original was it was so abstract that it was implied that anyone can use it. Definitely not on the same level as like Yoda or other Jedi, but like anybody could be in tune with the Force in some way. Now? Nah, if you don't have microfucks in your system, you can't move a boulder or hold a laser sword, so fuck you. This trend of taking magical concepts and trying to explain it like it's part of a science is really dumb and I hate it. It takes away the mysticism from the first movies. Another thing that bugs me is that we're never told why Anakin has the highest midichlorian count. I guess some fans figured it's explained in Revenge of the Sith when Palpatine talks about Darth Plagueis creating life with the Force. But like, the movie never explains that. We as the audience had to figure that out later on. If a movie doesn't explain something and then we as the audience have to guess how to explain it, then that's not very good. No, this isn't like the Joker's backstory in The Dark Knight or the briefcase in Pulp Fiction. Those aren't the main focus of their stories. I'd kind of like to figure out why Anakin is considered the chosen one and how he got those magical force powers. I don't want the movie to explain it to me like I'm a dumbass, but a little better explanation over nothing would work wonders. You get it. The midichlorians are pretty fucking stupid. In fact, a lot of this movie is really stupid. It doesn't feel like a fun adventure film or a great starting point for Star Wars as a whole. Yeah, remember, this is episode 1 of a franchise. Wouldn't you want to see where it goes after this? So why, after shitting on this movie, would I say I actually kind of enjoy it? Well, put simply, I have a lot of fun making fun of it. It's a bit of a backhanded compliment for sure, but I truly mean it. I may be in the minority here, but I think this movie is really funny, and I actually have a lot of fun revisiting it every once in a while. And there are things that I think are really good. For example, the music. That's something I always hear from people. Whether or not they hate or like these movies, almost everyone says the music is great, and I agree. I've always thought the prequel scores were so intense and yet so much fun to listen to. It kinda tricks me into taking these movies seriously. I think even though there's way too much CGI, I think it still looks cool. Everything looks fake, sure, but the different worlds and locations look really neat. That's the majority of my positives for this movie. Things look cool. Darth Maul? Cool. Pod racing? Cool. Lightsaber fight? Cool. And while everything looks grand and interesting, the twist is that there's nothing going on, so the movie feels empty. This movie could be compared to space itself. Vast and grand scale, but almost nothing going on. I understand this movie isn't good, and I know why people were extremely disappointed by it, as they should be. Here's the next installment in one of the most beloved movie trilogies ever, and it just doesn't work as well as the others. Is it bad? Yeah, but I can't say it ruined Star Wars for me. Hell, I still love the originals. So far, no Star Wars movie has ruined anything. More of a guilty pleasure than an actual favorite, so I'm giving it a 5 out of 10.
I don't like sand. I don't like sand. Sand. That is something I know I cannot do.
Attack of the Clones, in my opinion, is the worst Star Wars movie in this trilogy. But it's also the funniest. I swear, I laughed really hard during the majority of this movie. I was having so much fun. Now, I'm not saying this to cover up the fact that this movie isn't very good. I'm being serious. This movie is really funny. But yeah, it's also pretty terrible. The weird thing about Attack of the Clones is just how it's simultaneously better and worse than Phantom Menace. Menace at least had cool concepts like Darth Maul and the pod racing scenes, so even if you didn't like the movies or those elements, the movie had something going for it. This doesn't. I can't say this movie has worse elements than Menace, because Jake Lloyd is no longer playing Anakin, and Jar Jar's role in the story is severely diminished, and there's almost no mention of midichlorians. The problem isn't that it's worse, it just doesn't improve on anything. The acting is still pretty wooden and misguided. The only difference is now we have Hayden Christensen, who's doing a slightly better job than Lloyd, but not much. Count Dooku doesn't have the same presence as other Star Wars villains, and the story just isn't interesting, and worst of all, it doesn't make any sense. Padme is being stalked by an assassin, but it doesn't go anywhere and the plotline is pretty much forgotten. Because then it turns into the Anakin show, and it's all about them falling in love and Anakin becoming closer to the dark side. Then we have Obi-Wan's story where he discovers the clone army, and where Padme's assassin is, and where Count Dooku is, and is blatantly told that Palpatine is the Sith Lord they've been looking for, and nothing comes of it. I'm not even kidding. Obi-Wan had the whole conspiracy right in front of his beautiful face, and he doesn't do anything about it. He just forgets, so they can have one more movie where Anakin can discover all this and become Darth Vader. Because these movies need to end with the events of the originals being possible, no matter how convoluted and stupid the events of these movies turn out by comparison. So yeah, nothing in this movie matters, it's all boring and badly acted, so this means this is the worst Star Wars movie, right? Well, depends on your perspective. For me, the worst thing a Star Wars movie can be is boring. Some people see this as boring, but if I'm being honest, it's actually really funny. When the little bug things almost kill Padme, this is when the movie starts to go insane. Obi-Wan jumps out of the fucking window to catch some fucking robot and later on chews Anakin out for jumping out himself. There's a car chase scene that goes on for a very long time. There's a bar scene where Obi-Wan is offered drugs. The assassin is killed by Jango Fett, the guy who hired her. This whole chase scene is so wild and absurd, but the movie doesn't stop there. Anakin and Padme's conversations are bafflingly absurd.
I don't think the system works.
How would you have it work?
We need a system where the politicians sit down and discuss the problem, agree what's in the best interest of all the people, and then do it.
That's exactly what we do. The trouble is that people don't always agree.
Well, then they should be made to. I don't like sand.
Obi-Wan being handed the bad guy's plans and not reacting to any of it is just so funny. So yeah, this movie is pretty terrible, but does that mean I hate it? No. Even as a kid, while I never thought this movie was very good, I still had fun watching it. Hell, I think I like it a lot more now as an adult just because of how hilariously bad it is. I can't say it's the worst movie ever, but it's still not very good. So I'm giving it a 4 out of 10 and a solid recommendation to watch it anyway.
Do it now. Do it now. Do it. Do it. I am the Senate. Do it.
So Phantom Menace was bad, but kind of funny. Attack of the Clones was boring, but extremely funny. So what is Revenge of the Sith? Honestly, it's the best out of the prequel movies. And by that I mean it has the least bad stuff in it. I'd go as far as to say I think this movie is actually pretty okay. It has the best effects out of the three, the least bad acting, the most interesting music, and most definitely the most quotable.
This is where the fun begins.
Do it.
Another happy landing.
Did you ever hear the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise?
I am the Sith.
However, it still has a lot of problems that plague the other two movies. The dialogue can be really funny, but other times it's just as cringy as the other two movies, sometimes even worse.
No, it's because I'm so in love with you.
So love has blinded you.
What the f? No!
The effects are mainly CGI and they haven't aged all that well. The acting is still pretty wooden, mainly from Christensen, which is a shame because a lot of the emotional moments depend heavily on him. And a lot of the time, he doesn't really pull it off. And most of all, the movie raises more questions when trying to align the timeline of the saga. Obi-Wan and Yoda were there at the birth of Luke and Leia? Okay.
That boy is our last hope.
No, he's not!
Now, despite all of these, I still kinda like this movie. Christensen is still not great, but he's doing a better job this time around. From the first scene we see them flying towards Grievous's ship, you can tell Anakin's matured a little more since we last saw him. He's not as prone to anger as he was in the last movie, and he shows a little more empathy for people and wanting to help others. It would have been nice to see this development in the movie rather than off screen, but whatever, beggars can't be choosers. Also, I can buy him turning to the dark side in this movie. You really get the feeling that Anakin is not respected within the Jedi Council. I mean, Mace Windu straight up says that he doesn't trust him. That's messed up. Also, Yoda straight up says maybe the prophecy was mistaken. Right in front of Obi-Wan's face. You know, the apprentice of the guy who originally predicted the prophecy. You guys do not have people skills. This is why nobody likes the Jedi. Even though this stuff is presented, that doesn't automatically mean the movie is genius. The movie presents these things, but doesn't expand upon them in a way that seems natural. Maybe if the other two movies had really delved deep into these characters, we wouldn't have this problem, but here we are. At least this movie actually tries though, which is why a lot of people kinda like this one as opposed to the other two. There's a lot more scenes devoted to characters going through development and actually being put in difficult situations. The Darth Plagueis scene is really good, probably one of the best scenes from the whole trilogy. It's a simple conversation between two characters, but it also expands upon more of the lore of Star Wars. A lot of people have latched onto the scene as a way of describing Anakin's origins as a Force user with the whole creating life using the Force aspect. Is it actually what happens? I don't know. The movie never addresses it again, so who can really say? Then we have the scene of Anakin waiting at the Jedi Temple and Padme at their home. It's honestly one of my favorite scenes from Star Wars as a whole, because of how different it always felt. The music is really haunting, and everything just seems so quiet. Damn, I really wish the rest of the movie was like this. Oh wait, never mind, now we gotta go to the meme scene.
I am the Senate.
He said it! He said it!
So yeah, this movie isn't all that great when you really think about it. But to be fair, it isn't all that bad either. In fact, this is the best of the trilogy. The action is fun, the dialogue is cheesy, but quotable, and it's the only movie in the trilogy that's the closest to the original movies. Ironically, since the next installment in the canon is the original Star Wars. So to close up my thoughts on this movie, I'm giving Revenge of the Sith a 7 out of 10. Not the best Star Wars, but certainly the best prequel. Of course I wasn't going to claim these movies were some hidden gems and that people were way too harsh on them originally. However, I wouldn't go as far as some of the other YouTubers who have covered these movies. But I wouldn't disagree with them either. I don't hate these movies or think they ruined Star Wars. I just think they're lame installments in the franchise that are pretty hilarious at times. Even as a kid, I never found them all that impressive. I was always more of a fan of the originals. I kinda just shrugged them off, but still accepted the fact that they were events that took place years before Luke Skywalker and the gang had their adventures. However, whenever I saw people complaining about these movies, I never really got why people were this angry over them. Like, I can get not liking the movies and even getting a little angry over them, but never to the point that I would bully Jake Lloyd and say George Lucas raped my childhood. These movies aren't good, but they aren't the worst movies to come out ever. I've seen worse. I'm probably more insulted by movies like Justice League or BVS, and I'm not as big of a DC fan as I am a Star Wars fan. I acknowledge these movies have faults, but not to the point that I consider them cinematic cancer. If anything, I respect George Lucas for making the movies he wanted to make. I may not agree with his final vision, and clearly not everyone else did either, but I still respect him for getting the movies he wanted to make out there. I'm more willing to defend a shitty movie that's a director's vision over a shitty movie that's a studio's vision. So no, I don't think these movies are very good, but I'd be lying if I said I don't have fun watching them. I'll be revisiting the originals for years because I actually love them. I respect them as movies and I appreciate their impact on cinema. I'll be revisiting these movies for completely different reasons. If I'm ever sad or in need of a good chuckle, I'll watch these movies and know they fucked up badly, but also hilariously. Well, I did it. I defended the prequels but still said they were terrible. But I know what you may be thinking. Hal, at the end of your first Star Wars video, you said these were better than the Disney movies. So now that you've seen The Rise of Skywalker, does your bold claim still stand?